TikTok, it's time to rock. Welcome to the channel, folks. Welcome to the second show, the second stream on the channel today. And of course, when that always happens, I have to say, welcome to the A team, to the
Really, yes.
I have to, don't I?
Thank you. You do. Yeah, you do. Yeah, absolutely.
No, seriously though, guys, we had a great show today. Pete and I, we spoke about a few things dear to us, guitars, great guitar players, and making music. Brad, you know,
yep.
I thought of you, bro, when we were talking about some of these things. Also, mainly from Pete's perspective, he was giving some perspective from being a musician. So I thought of you because I knew that you had a big gig. So yeah, you had a big gig last night. So good to see you, bro. You made it back all in one piece.
Made it back.
Yeah, it was on his private jet, and he's
flew in and out. You know, real quickly. You know, 1 hour flight either way, and it's just nice and easy. Nothing. I wish it was nearly a 3.5 hour drive, close to 4 hours with a stop in the middle. You know, stop to get a coffee. It was very rainy, very bleak and whatnot. But the crowd turned up and we had a good show. So that's all that matters. That's rock and roll for you.
Yes, and Brad's playing stadiums now. That's why he can afford a private jet. Yeah, I've seen the theatres you play. They blew it posh. They are. Come on.
I wish there was private jets, Simon. I really do.
That's coming. That's coming. Got to be.
I hope so. Hey, look, let's just hope that, my blues career takes off, and I can start hiring, private jets, all that stuff. That'd be great.
Seriously, bro. Seriously, bro.
One day,
because you are a blues guitar player. There is time for a career in blues to take off, bro. Got to be optimistic, Simon.
Yeah, you just get into the right age when being a blues musician is coming into its own.
I've always said that. I've always said I think blues musicians really can't call themselves blues musos until they've been through, half a century of life, basically, because
100%.
you start to, to be a 16-year-old bluesman, it's not really the truth. You're mimicking. 100%. When you've been through a lot, you can start singing the blues,
Yeah, you get in there, youngsters.
And the Rock Professor, good to see you jumping back on board with us now. We're making plans, folks, behind the scenes for the show moving forward. We're going to do a couple more weeks of these impromptu shows, and Simon, when he's off that instrument that's holding his neck on his head, when he's off that, we're going to be ranking the tracks, Simon.
Surely the other way round. I hope my head's being held on by my neck, not the other way round. My neck's being held on by my head. Well, there is something in that. Yes, I've got just under 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks to go before I can divest myself of the. When I went to see the surgeon after 4 weeks, he said to me, I don't really understand what he was talking about. He said to me, "So have you given it a name?" Oh, what? He said, "Your collar. Have you given it a name?" What? Well, at that stage, no. But I could see that after a while you do give it a name. But it comprises all swear words, so I'm not doing it.
Good. You can tell us. You can tell us at the end of the show what it is.
Yes.
Actually, we should run a poll. If you want to guess what it is and say what it is in the chat. Without maybe
gratuitous swear words in the chat.
Probably
get
not
for that.
Yeah, probably not. If you want to message the Rock Professor during the show with what you think it might be, Facebook Messenger him.
Facebook Messenger. Yeah.
Message him. But yeah, good to see you guys. Good to see the Rock Professors on the mend. And Brad, thank you, bro, for jumping on. I know, especially from your perspective, being a hard worker during the week and then gigging in the weekends and giving us your time on a Sunday, bro. Means a lot. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you for that.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Yeah.
Try and keep you awake for an hour and a half.
Yeah. I've got some rocket fuel. I'm okay. I've got a cup of rocket fuel. So
Simon, it might become a problem when other people in his life start saying, well, you're getting more time from Brad in the weekends than we are. So if that happens, we're in trouble.
You're in more trouble than me. You're in more trouble than me because I'm a long way away. Jackie's got to come a long way to give me a thick ear. Not so much with you.
My guitar has been saying that, Andrew.
Yeah.
You're not spending enough time with me.
Yeah.
Seriously, guys, means a lot. And, we're going to have a bit of fun. A lot of fun on these guitar themed player shows that we've been doing. I'm certainly looking forward to this one, talking about these guys and Stratocasters in general, because boy, what a great guitar the Strat is. And listening to these guys over the week in preparation for this show, gosh, you just have to, don't you want to just whip out the Stratocaster?
I have one out permanently.
It's an addictive tone. Makes you want to, go to that neck and middle, the back and bridge, the middle and bridge, It's just that, I don't know. Yeah. I was listening to, it was, Happy 36th Birthday to Instep by Stevie Ray Vaughan. And I was listening to that yesterday and today, actually, I put it back on for another listen, and you're just listening to how pristine and clear the recorded tones are of that album. It's such a remarkable sounding album in comparison to, say, Texas Flood album. There's a big difference in sound quality, but it's still got the consistency of that Stratocaster tone still there. There's there's a big contrasting tone, but of the recording, but the sound is still there, and you can tell Stevie's really refined at that point. His blues sound with the Stratocaster, and like I said last week, at this point, with Stevie Ray Vaughan around In Step when that was released, most blues players were playing a Fender Stratocaster. Most,
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
For sure.
So we're going to talk about that a little bit more. There's another couple of shout outs we got to do, guys. We've ranked this album on the channel, Blind Faith's only album. And today is the celebration, Simon, of their famous Hyde Park gig, which is not far really from, well, you're the closest out of the three of us to it, Hyde Park. Just a few months before the Rolling Stones did theirs, didn't they? So
in memory of Brian Jones?
Yes, a few months before them. So and look, I've got to say this, guys. I know that it gets a bad rap, that film footage, from experts and fans, but I love it because it just captures, a band going through some turmoils, a couple of a guitar player and a drummer having an issue with other things and an issue with each other, and trying to do the best that they can in front of a sea of people, Simon.
Yeah. Yes, when they're not quite sort of ready for it in a way. So, yeah.
Spot on.
56 years ago, guys. Only 56 years ago.
Yeah.
7th of June.
And one thing, Brad, that Clapton says about that gig from a negative perspective, he talks about, his relationship with Ginger being on a knife edge during that whole period. But the criticism that he has with that gig is that it was underpowered, Brad, and he had nothing to lean on. He had nothing to back him up. And, we're all guitar players here, and a lot of people in the chat are guitar players, and we all have an idea of what he's talking about. If you're playing somewhere and you're underpowered, you just feel vulnerable, don't you? You feel you feel naked, bro.
Yeah. 100%.
I was a bit worried then. I thought you were going to say playing in your underpants. What? Oh, you have, yes. You've got to have. I mean, it's early days then, isn't it? Early days of kind of PAs and all of that stuff. It's open air concerts and things, especially Isle of Wight for 69 as well.
I'm always a big advocate for making sure you're, adequately powered for the power of the band. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter about. I mean, from a live perspective, even like last night's venue, they were like, "Oh, we can't get too loud because, there's poker machines in that part of the venue, and we don't want to upset the patrons."
Poker machines. Oh, right.
This, that sort of thing. And anyway, long story short, I knew it wasn't the right gig for my Marshall fridge, my new fridge. It wasn't the right venue for a quad box and a Marshall head. So I took my Albury twin speaker box and an adequate head and things like that for the venue. But you've still got to be at the same volume at least as the drums. But on an outdoor setting, people don't understand that on stage you really need more of your own sound. And people, I have this not argument, but this debate with sound guys when they always say, "I'll put your guitar through the wedge for you." And I go, "But the wedge is for my vocal." "Yeah, but we can put your guitar in there as well so you can hear it better." I go, "Yeah, but it sounds like shit through the wedge in comparison to what it sounds like through a speaker box that's dedicated for guitar." So I understand, depending on, I guess, the gig, but when you're playing blues and rock and you've got a particular tone, you don't want to be listening to it through a fallback wedge, because unless you've got a complete and utter digital rig that's got it's all plugins and it's got simulators, then that's different altogether again. You're talking different. It's like chalk and cheese. But when you got a valve head, a speaker box, and you got that tone behind you and they're telling you to turn that down, but we'll put it through the fallback wedge, it doesn't make sense, because you need volume in that head and speaker to get your tone. So you end up playing like absolute crud if you haven't got a good tone. That's what you're saying, Drew.
Yeah, 100%.
And balance.
Yeah, you're right, Simon. And that's one negative, that Clapton talks about, in regards to that gig. But I still love it. I watch it at least once a year. Simon, because we're getting older, you appreciate a lot of these film footage things for more than just the music. You know, you know, you're looking at the people, Brad. You're looking at the fashion. You know, you're looking at what you're looking a little bit out of the frame, as they say, of what's going on. You know, and I find that quite fascinating. I really do.
I do too.
Yeah.
But it's that gig thing is really difficult about volume and stuff, isn't it? And things. And I mean, I think we just. I mean, I'm a bit like you, Brad. I used to have a high watt 100 watt on a 412 cab, but I just found that you just couldn't play. You know, it was so loud. It was fantastic, but you know, for it to be in the band, you have to have it on like one. You know, if you were lucky, and one was, you know, so. I just had to sell it because it was just way too much for what I did, and that's why I got my PV Delta Blues, you know, which is only 30 watts, which is plenty loud enough. I only ever play with it on about 3, you know, maybe 3.5 if I can push it a bit. But you know, because what I discovered, what you did, what you have to do is you have to set yourself up so you're loud enough against the drums. So at the front of this, you know, if you're going to stand at the front of the stage, the band sounds balanced and it's got a sound and you're loud enough, and that's fine. You know, and you've got to kind of ignore the size of the room you're in and stuff like that. You know, I used to make a joke that said, you know, I'll get a high watt 100 watt when somebody comes up and says you're not playing loud enough, you know, you know, which nobody ever has. But I do think that's the way we decided that we do it, was to basically, you know, whatever it is, 10 feet from the stage or whatever, you know, if you sounded good there, balanced, you know, and everything was in a mix, and you know, you had the right, and then you didn't worry about somebody who was at the back of, you know, if you were playing a big room, you just said, well, they'll have to come close if they want to hear it more or whatever, and just face the fact that you're not going to be able to turn it up to 7 and let fly. Fun though it is, kids.
No, you're right, Simon. So yeah, thank you guys for sharing your thoughts and experiences on that, because that's what we're all about. And Simon, I think you've got some other news, other shout outs. Yeah.
I've got a shout out to Fruitcake Tony, our old mate Fruitcake Tony, who did his final Show Us Your Pick show last night. So the last one, I think they had a bit of a celebration in the middle of the night for me. But yeah, so go and check that out. Yeah, Tony's final show, and we should mark it as such. One of the community has decided to stop. So well, hats off to Tony for, well, I don't know, was it 5 or 6 years of shows, you know, and quite often doing twice a week shows. So you know, I know it takes a lot of organisation, a lot of work. So hats off to Tony for doing that for so long. See what he does next.
We all know how much work goes into a show. So there you go.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome, guys. And I think before the Rock Professor does a roll call, I think that's all our shout outs, Brad. Was there anything that you wanted to do a shout out about that's come to your mind?
No.
Cool.
All good.
Yeah. So
awesome.
So yes, we need to thank Runs for Their Lives for giving us a super chat. Thank you very much, Front. That's very kind of you. 349, 349
that's
bones.
Rebecca. I think that's Rebecca. Okay. So thank you.
Hopefully it is Rebecca. Thank you, Rebecca. We've let your name out of the bag now. That's it. We've got Hugh Caldwell. Morning, Hugh. Hope you're all right. And Ellen, of course. Morning, Ellen.
Our favourite Scotsman.
Doing all right. Yes. Well, Ellen.
No. Hugh.
Of course, yes. Well, no. See, more favourite than Jim. Now there's trouble. There's trouble at Mill now.
When Jim's on, he's our favourite Scotsman.
Oh, that's how it works, is it? So Hugh and Ellen, good morning, both. I'm doing all right, Ellen. Thank you very much. 2.5 weeks more of this nonsensical collar and lots of physio, but I'm getting there. Johnny Heartbreaker, morning, Johnny. Thank you for that kind words from Johnny. Saying it is the 18 because Simon is back. Thank you very much. I'm self-regarding. I really had a thing that pertains to me, of course. Because you've got to. But it's very kind, Johnny. Thank you. Don ZD 351. Morning, John. How are you? Hope you're good.
Hey, brother.
Back. Hope your daughter had a good birthday last week. Fun.
Yeah.
I think that's everyone that's made a comment. We've got more than that watching, but so make a comment and we'll say good morning to you.
I'm just watching John's reading John's comment up here. So good to see John has. Well. Okay, no, I won't go there. I won't go.
No.
No.
Leave it. Step away from it.
Some of them. All right.
Yeah, me.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Yes, I think we should move swiftly along, Dr. Walton. Moving right along.
John, eh? You can rely on John, can't you?
We do often.
So guys, you know, out of the plethora of, you know, Stratocaster players out there, and you know, every time we do one of these kind of shows, plethora.
Do you mean plethora?
Plethora. Every time we do one of these shows, we have an argument, or there seems to be an argument or a discussion about why so and so wasn't included, and why, you know, and why Robin Trow wasn't. Well, you know, they're all good, you know. So we're making that quite clear from the word go that we've just picked 3 guys to talk about that I thought kind of covered a good range of tones. Yes, Brad, they played blues. Yes, they had that as their backbone. But if you look at Rory, for example, if we're going to talk about Rory first, guys, Rory being an Irishman, and according to Mr. Wikipedia, Simon was the first Irish rock star, deservedly so, because he did make the bridge, didn't he, from blues to rock. But there is an argument to say that he was playing pop music before blues when he was in those show bands, Simon.
That's what I thought you were going to say, is that he's the first Irish musician to make the jump from that Irish show band tradition of, you know, covers band basically, to blues and rock musician, international blues and rock musician. That's what I thought you were going to say, and I was going to agree with it as a position, because I think that's true.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, one of the great things, and I'll open it up to a conversation with you guys, one of the great things that I loved about Rory, and we've been fortunate to rank off the top of my memory, I'm sorry, guys, I didn't do my research properly, but at least 2 albums we've ranked: Irish Tour and Juice.
Yeah, I think it was.
Juice. Yeah, we have Juice. Yeah, 2.
So one of the great things that I loved about Rory, and can I just give me 2 seconds? I want to show you something. So you guys know that I love bluegrass music, but one of the main reasons why I love the mandolin, Brad and Simon, it's because I was listening to Led Zeppelin, and obviously Led Zeppelin have the mandolin in a lot of their tracks, and Rory played the mandolin as well, you know, in standard mandolin tuning, and rocked out with some blues on the mandolin. And I thought, from being a young guy watching this and hearing this guy's just incredible. And then he plays the resonator, Brad and Simon.
Yeah.
Multi-instrumentalist.
Incredible.
Yes.
So Simon, yes. So we'll open it up to you for some comments.
Well, I think that's right. I think that and you're all right. It's one of the interesting things about Rory Gallagher, isn't it? That when I went to see him live, that a lot of it there was quite a lot of the whole section of playing a resonator, playing acoustic, playing the harmonica and acoustic and things. And there's a whole, and I think that's a sort of tradition. I think you could say that in common with Led Zeppelin, they had an acoustic section.
Yep.
And he was always, as keen on that acoustic side as he was the static, the Stratocaster electric side, really. But I think it's kind of lost a bit, that, isn't it, in the in the haze of the Stratocaster worship that we all do, and his famous battered Stratocaster. Do you forget? And I think you're right that that ability to bring in the acoustic music and and make it a part of the concert that you do, 2 hours that he's going to play, kind of thing. He's absolutely right. I'm one of the great musicians. I'm, great guys and great musicians, and as you say, the first Irish rock star really to make the jump out of rural Ireland, and into rock stardom.
Yeah, just an incredible guy. And Brad, I know, when we were ranking one of the albums, I think you and I shared a similar experience with coming to Rory. We discovered him later in the development of our music tastes, because unfortunately he was never, when I was growing up, and like you, he was never accessible. It wasn't, and I only found out about the Irish tour again through other people, through their parents, talking about this guy, and then sort of realizing, wow, there is a whole world of music out there, Brad, that we don't even know. So, what's your thoughts, bro, on Rory?
Oh, look, obviously with Rory Gallagher, you meant, you hit the nail on the head. Discovered him a bit later than a lot of the heroes I've got. And Rory Gallagher, I've always thought he fused a lot of different music within his playing, but he had his own style, if that makes sense. It was
100%.
very raw, explosive, a lot of high energy blues rock there. Yep. But he had his own thing, and even his voice, the way he sung, he was like a tour de force within himself. I'll say it that way. And when you watch what he does with a beaten up Fender Strat, it's pretty amazing, really, when you think about the sounds he was pulling and the style of music he was playing. The band, it was almost like the way the band were backing him. He was leading. They were just following. I said the same thing about Hendrix not so long ago. It's like you're watching Hendrix at Monterey. He'd be playing, and it's like Mitch and Noel were just keeping up with Jimmy. And I feel the same way about Rory. I think that the bands, although they were phenomenal that he had, they were basically keeping up with Rory. He was a tour de force. But listening to some stuff this week again of Rory, just in preparation for this show, I still feel like I'm discovering new things, within Rory's playing. He was, he did fuse a lot of different styles, but he had his own style, 100%. You can clearly, like, we'll get to Stevie Ray Vaughan, but you can clearly hear Stevie's influences quite predominant in his playing.
Exactly.
Not so much with Rory, I don't think. It's more his own stylings.
Yeah, I think you're right, bro.
His influences are there, but the thing about Rory, the way he played the Stratocaster as well, was he made the instrument work for him. You can beat up the thing is.
The good thing about Rory is that there's a lot of live footage on YouTube too for you to go and check out. And he played loud, bro, too. A little bit like Stevie, sort of I think that gets back to that opening comment that you were making before, when we were talking about the Blind Faith concert, bro. You know, just enjoyed having that something to lean on. And I think, Simon, when you think about it now, I've just had an epiphany. You can understand now why he'd like to have those acoustic sets and why Led Zeppelin liked to have those acoustic sets. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, completely.
Totally makes
I
sense.
think that, yeah. The other thing I'd say about Rory Gallagher is that if you get into his, into his discography, I mean, the first album of his I bought was Tattoo, which is
Yes.
1973, which is, I mean, it's much less blues than you think it's going to be. It's a lot less blues than you think it's going to be. A lot more varied. There's a lot more. There's a lot great songs on it and stuff like that. I'd like to write that as an album, but it's not it's not straightforward like 12-bar blues kind of thing by a country mile. There's a lot of different styles in it, and he branched out into different areas. I think it's important to he just wasn't it wasn't just a sort of straightforward, blues player. He did other stuff as well in a lot of.
True.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm glad too, guys. And we mentioned this, I think, when the information or the news came out regarding the auction for this guitar and this amp. I think the guitar sold for over $1 million, Brad, which is what we kind of thought it would go for. And for all the people out there that want guitars in museums, well, they're pretty lucky because that one's going to end up in a museum, Simon.
Yeah. Well, I think there was a kind of general feeling, wasn't there, that I know that Joe Bonner. I saw some posts by Joe Bonamassa about it saying, people saying, "You're going to buy it?" He's going, "No, we're not going to buy it. It should be in Ireland." It's no, we're not. Don't just buy just I'm going to buy everything for the hell of it because Do you see his post this week? He bought another Dumble, for a quarter of $1 million. This is the end of it. Yes, Joe. Yes, I'll bet it is.
Then he does a video this morning on guitarists saying you have to go out there and know what you want and stick to what you want and don't be easily led by other people as far as buying gear, So maybe he's talking to himself there.
Trying to stop himself from I think that quite a lot of that stuff is he's a bit of clearly does some wheeler dealering, buys some stuff here, sells it on there, changes it, gets a few guitars, changes it for something else, but you still can't resist a bargain though, can he? Oh, look, was it? There was a post of Norman's Red Guitars. They had a Blackguard telly waiting for him in July when he's going to pick it up. Have you got any? I haven't got enough, Joe. Pulling his leg.
But seriously, guys, before we move on, and I'll get Brad to introduce Stevie Ray. But from my perspective, being a Rory Gallagher fan, I was really happy that this guitar auction and conversation and the couple of biographies, Brad, that came out, and also a documentary film on his life came out. I'm always stoked because that's going to bring new players, new fans, new listeners, Brad, stuff, that we never had the opportunity to tap into, Simon. We had to do it the old fashioned way. And, a new generation of guitar players out there can go, wow, are going to be spoilt for choice. So that can't be a bad thing, Brad.
No, 100%. Yeah,
God no. I mean, John makes a great comment. He says, "I hope they put a tombstone on the museum display then, because that guitar is dead now. If it's not making music anymore, it's now just a guitar-shaped decoration." I think that's
100%.
I agree, John. I think that has tremendous validity. That comment, that it does need to. It's very difficult, isn't it? I mean, I think that don't they get it out into Bonamassa played it recently, didn't he? I think they do get it out and get people to play it from time to time. But I agree with you. It's a musical instrument, should be played and not stuck in a glass case, for sure.
100%. And that's one of the reasons why we like Kurt. And we spoke about that earlier on the channel today, guys, and we'll always talk about it. And Johnny makes a good point there about Rory's sweat. Yeah, that's famous fact that came out recently that, his sweat. And if you look at him playing live, Brad, it's a bit like you, I suppose, when you're gigging, bro. It's just you're bleeding, for it.
He's not. Brad's completely the opposite. Not a hair out of place. It's just smoother than a panther cheating at backgammon. He's up there in his leather trousers, his leopard skin top. Give it, I'm cooler than cool. Look at that. Butter wouldn't melt on me, baby.
You got that wrong, Simon. You got that wrong. Let me tell you, I have to say that I think the paint on those L series Strats used to come off a lot easier too.
A lot easier, did it? Yeah.
Than the I think they just, I don't know. There was something about the way they were applying the paint to the guitars, and it was the process was a lot different there. But yes, the acidic sweat would have played quite a I mean, look at Philip Sace's excuse me.
That's the other guitar,
guitar mother. From pictures when he first got it to now, it looks like a completely different guitar. I played a Rory Gallagher signature model guitar a few years ago in a guitar shop, and I was just trying to determine whether it was like a proper historical relic, but it was pretty much a bare guitar without any paint on it.
Absolutely.
It had a lot of nicks and stuff out of the neck and all sorts of stuff. And the thing that I found interesting, and I was not aware of this until I played this, that I don't think he had a 5-way switch in it. He kept it a 3-way switch.
Correct.
So basically, if he did use the out of the neck and bridge or the middle and bridge, let me rephrase that. The middle and neck, or the bridge and neck, the bridge and middle. Sorry, I'm getting confused. The 2 and 4 positions, on the Strat. If he was using them, he would have.
Where's one? Which one's one? You see, I never know whether one is the bridge pickup and you work up, or whether one is the neck pickup and you work it down. See, I always think of it as one being the neck pickup, and then because I'm working down, that's the way my brain. I think it's the opposite to the way most people think of it.
I think it's what they call position 1 is the bridge pickup. But I found that was interesting, and it was a different feel to the guitar because it's so stripped and bare. It definitely feels a lot different to play. But that was a signature model, and it was a lot of money. It was a custom shop replica.
Yeah, 100%.
What was it like? What was it like to play? If you took away the Rory Gallagher bit, what was it like to play?
Well, I played another custom shop Strat in there, Simon, that I felt played better. That was just my opinion. Again, but we all know guitars are personal. You pick up a guitar and some things. I did like it. I thought it was pretty cool that it was back and whatnot. But then I thought to myself, I played a custom shop in surf foam green, I think it was, with a white pick guard and a maple neck, and I really liked that. It was custom shop. It was relicked a little bit and played really nice. It sounded, in my opinion, phenomenal. But it's one of those things. I mean, if I was to A/B it with another custom shop, I might not have got it. No.
Yeah, 100%, bro. And I think that's one of the great things about these classic guitars is, they tap into, obviously, that history of what these guitars are and where they've come from, because as Hughes just said, the 5-way switch didn't come into effect until 77. So one of the truths about Brad's leather pants guys when he's gigging is that they do stand up by themselves in the corner. So I do know that. Apparently,
they have their own seat. They have their own seat on the plane.
Yeah,
actually, I don't even keep them in the cupboard anymore. They walk themselves out to the garage every night.
Well done.
Every night, and I wear them every day because every night.
I'm a real Jim Morrison. I wear my leather boots every day for no reason.
That's right.
Cutting up onions in the kitchen. There I am, my leather trousers.
Right, hey, I used the Dyson vacuum cleaner, vacuuming the house in leather pants.
Yeah, well done. Could I say
at the end of
before we move on? Sorry, as just because Philip Sace is going to be on Tone Talk in the next few weeks.
Awesome.
With Dave Freeman and Marcus Dunsky. So look out for that.
That'd be really good. Yeah,
awesome.
That'd be awesome.
At the end of the show, guys, we're going to talk about, maybe some songs or some things that you should listen to or talk about. But I've got a pick here of one recording in particular that came out only recently, Rory Gallagher's Blues. It's a great compilation. It's available on Spotify and also on CD and LP. If you're just interested in the blues perspective of what Rory has to offer, that's a great compilation because for me, the essence of Rory, Brad and Simon is the blues, and then from that stems that rock aspect of him.
100%.
Cool. Brad, I know that you are very fond of Stevie Ray Vaughan, so I'm not going to steal all the line.
Before we go on, are we going to choose 3 songs, albums, whatever that we think people should listen to from Rory Gallagher? Oh, at the end. Okay, boss. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, jumping ahead.
I'm not going to introduce all the artists tonight. Brad, I know that you are a Stevie Ray Vaughan fan, so
as we all are.
Talk to us about why Stevie is so cool.
Well, look, to be honest with you, like I think he's the Texas blues messiah, isn't he? Really, let's be honest. I mean, I don't know many guitarists that don't like Stevie Ray Vaughan. I mean, he was naturally gifted. His stylings were very much, his own thing, but you could hear Hendrix, you could hear Albert King, you could hear his heavy, strings, you could hear the Stratocaster being used with big tones, big amp tones, and although he fused, a bit of jazz in there at times, a bit of soul, even some Latin sort of elements in there, the majority and the heart and soul of Stevie Ray Vaughan's playing is blues. And even down to, how he ended up recording Texas Flood in 83. He stood his ground and decided to be a bluesman instead of following the path of being David Bowie's guitar player. And, that's a big gig to knock back, guys. Imagine that. I mean, let's be honest. David Bowie discovers him and says, "Oh, I want you to be my guitar player."
It's funny though, isn't it, Brad?
With him and gets organised to go and do it, and then all of a sudden decides, "No, I'm going to stick to my roots, my blues. That's where I'm at." But although he used numerous guitars, he had his number one Strat that you just highlighted there quite a bit, Andrew, in those pictures, those wonderful pictures. When I think of Texas blues, I think of Stevie Ray Vaughan through and through. I think of ZZ Top as well, but Texas blues. He fused all those influences there, made his own style. He was a powerhouse of a player. I don't think there was, there's been a lot of players that have come after, and I call them disciples of Stevie Ray Vaughan, because I don't know if you've seen some of the raw footage that's floating around on the internet of even him in a blues club called Anton's at 16, and he's playing like he is a 30, 40-year-old man, like a seasoned musician. And obviously, him discussing the in-session thing he did with Albert King, where, there's a discussion point where he got up and played with Albert. And there's, rumors going, stories, not rumors, stories of, Albert would put his guitar behind the curtain and play a lick, and Stevie would mimic it, and on the trade-offs, and because he just loved Albert King so much. I think he was probably one of the pioneers of the Stratocaster guys, without a doubt. There's guys, Clapton, Hendrix, Stevie Ray. They're the guys I first think of when I think of a Stratocaster, and then the rest come, Richie Blackmore, all those guys. I think Stevie, honestly, brought blues back into fashion, and I think Stevie Ray Vaughan was one of those guys in that 80s period where I feel like blues was probably starting to get pushed out of, the world of music, and I think he brought it back. And man, what
he
can I say?
Paved the way, didn't he? Paved the way for people like Philip Sayce, and all of the modern blues artists that we have now who are out playing. He paved the way for all of those guys. One thing that struck me, Brad, is that decision that he made. I can't imagine him playing Ziggy Stardust. Can you? It's oddly, I can't. In my head, I cannot. I see Hundred shaking his head as well. I can't visualize in my head him playing da 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 da. It's like that doesn't sound. It doesn't sound somehow. The thought of it is completely incongruous. I'm sure he could.
There's rehearsal tapes going around of Stevie rehearsing, like he did it, like he's capable of playing that stuff. But it's
not a capability thing. It's a thing where your heart and it's not where I see him being, and I see him being when he did what he did. Now, I'm a bluesman. I'm from Texas. I play blues, soul, that kind of amalgam of all those things. I don't play rock in the same way that I'm not like Mick Ronson playing rock.
Simon,
that's got nothing to do with him
private
being
jets,
able to do it. Yes,
he went from private jets at 5-star hotels to a van Brad that was running out of petrol.
And he believes so heavily in Double Trouble as well. Like, don't discount those guys.
No.
And Chris Layton, he was, he knew that those guys, they understood Stevie. They understood what Stevie was trying to do, and they were the backbone for Stevie Ray Vaughan. People talk about Stevie, how good he was, or how good that rhythm section he had were as well. They never ever let him down. You know what I mean? They were always in his pocket.
No.
On stage and off stage. So, and we did mention just before, Andrew and Simon, about Instep, his post sobriety sort of clarity album, and how phenomenal that record is. I mean, we'll get to talking about the three things that I think are important later, but there's clear footage of him, obviously, when he's sober, as opposed to when he was under the influence. And I think there was so much more for him, moving forward as a bluesman. He let's just imagine Stevie didn't die so tragically in a helicopter the way he did. What he'd be doing today? He'd be like still doing the blues. He'd still be doing it.
Well, he'd be there, wouldn't he, with all those blues guys, wouldn't he, doing that kind of blues rock stuff? I'm sure he would be, and be feeling pleased that he inspired a whole generation to come after him and take it on to new places that he signposted for sure.
Yeah.
I find it fascinating that his music was, when it first came out, when I heard it on the radio and it was on a TV show, I forget the first song. What was the first single? It's the video with the fat girl and he throws her out the window. It'll come to me.
You thinking of off a different record, Cold Shot, wasn't it?
Cold Shot. Yeah. Sorry,
Johnny Heartbreakers put it in the chat. Thanks, Johnny.
Yeah, thank you, Johnny. And that song and that video was popular. And so, you guys are right. If there is one act responsible for putting blues in the mainstream, from my experience, and then not long after that was Robert Cray. Robert Cray with Strong Persuader came along, and then Clapton a little bit later in the 80s. But Brad, you're right. If it wasn't for Stevie Ray Vaughan, from my perspective, we wouldn't have had any contemporary blues players.
No, he kicked the door down for the rest to follow. And I mean, you've only got to listen to like Clapton, the way he talks about Stevie the first time he heard him. He said like he had to know who that player was. Like he pulled over his car. He needed to know right at that point, like not later in the day. It needed to be right then and there. He needed to know who that player was. And look, I just read Hugh's comment just before about David Bowie, and one of my favorite solos of Stevie Ray Vaughan of all time is of China Girl from David Bowie's record, Let's Dance. And I think a lot of Stevie Ray Vaughan's playing on that record is probably what you would have heard him do if he was in more of a rock band, like just a guitar player in a rock band in a rock outfit. But he's still stuck to the blues, even though he was playing like on a pop record, I guess a rock pop record or whatever you want to call it. But you can see the shift from Let's Dance to Texas Flood, what he was really trying to achieve, guys. But pioneer of the Stratocaster without a doubt. And still to this day, there's forums, there's websites, there's YouTube channels, all talking about how to get Stevie Ray Vaughan's tone and how
100%.
Tube Screamers, this, that, blah, 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 blah. And that's a whole nother rabbit hole within itself that we won't even attempt to open at the moment. You know what I mean? It's something that
it's great from a fan's perspective, that people are delving into this, and there's a lot of guys out there offering relict, number one Stratocasters, and for all budgets, Simon, guys that are relicking classic vibes up to the expensive Fender Stratocasters. So that, and all credit to Stevie Ray Vaughan, because it's because of that legacy, Brad, that 40, 50 years later, people are still chasing his tone.
Yeah. But, people can chase his tone, but it's still the way he played was something, quite unique. I mean, you only got to listen to his interpretation of Little Wing and whatnot, which I mean, I'm not going to go on about stuff yet, songs and this and that. You can hear where he's playing, his stylings, where it'll come from, but his interpretation of those sort of covers he did and blues classics and that, he gave them new life and introduced new fans to that music as well. And that's, it's kept the blues flame flying, really. The flag flying. He did that through the 80s and into the, just before he died.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. The other thing
Simon,
I'd
what's
say
your
about,
thoughts on? Oh, yeah. Thank you.
The thing that, and I'm sure I said that kind of that recently, I wasn't really. I was off on some other path when he was sort of doing in the 80s and stuff. So I didn't really. I think when he came out, clearly because I'm an idiot of the 70s, so Rory Gallagher and people like that, and I kind of it didn't really click with me then until later when we started doing this show as part of it, really. But the thing that strikes me about him more than anything else is that when you watch him, when you listen to him, when you listen to playing, he just flows out of him. You don't feel like he's just he's just having to think. He just comes like a river flowing out of him, this music, and he just goes and goes, and he's just, and you're going to be that connected with your instrument and that connected with the music, being a sort of antenna. And I feel like he's, the classic, he's an antenna, it's coming in and he's just, letting it flow through and kind of thing. And I think that's, that's a really, really important part of him, that kind of flow. And that's what I think is brilliant about him now, is just that when you watch him doing it, he just starts, doesn't he? He's off, and it's the right hand is going up and down, and then left hand's flailing across it. It just in a way that that you can watch other guitar players. They don't play like that. They play differently and fantastically, but that kind of just flow out from him, I just think is amazing. That's my major take from from going back, basically.
Yeah,
Brad, we all know that Stevie is a great guitar player, and as you correctly have said, is one of the giants as far as Stratocaster tones goes, and that whole legacy he has. You're a singer, songwriter, and a guitar player too.
Probably.
Apparently.
Well, and I'll get Simon to answer this question too, but we got to remember, these guys are singers besides being guitar players, and so how do you rate Stevie as a singer?
Full package, mate. His vocal ability matched his guitar ability. I love his voice. There's footage of him all over the place on YouTube now, and I very, very, very rarely have picked any faults with his voice. Even if he's been touring hard, he's been abusing his body with substance, whatever. He just, I think he gave 200% every performance that I've ever seen him play. El Macombo, those sort of things. You watch that, his voice is incredible. I mean, my first real listen to Stevie Ray was Couldn't Stand the Weather album. Scuttlebutt, and I was like, what the, I was going to swear.
What the scuttlebutt is that?
Yeah, what the scuttlebutt is that? And then listening to his vocal on the song Couldn't Stand the Weather. He had such a very strong voice, and same thing like with Clapton, especially into the 90s. I think Clapton's voice became his equal instrument. Through the 70s, he was discovering his voice, and I think by the 90s he became a singer. But for Stevie, he was a singer from the minute he put himself in front of the microphone. I think he gave, just as much effort into his vocal as his guitar playing, but it's overlooked a lot because his guitar playing is just so incredible. So, but I'm glad you brought it up, Andrew, because his vocal ability, from Texas Flood all the way through Step to everything he did, and even collaborations he did when he did stuff with Jeff Healey. This, like, whatever he did, he sung phenomenally. you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
Strong
Simon,
voice.
you got some comments you want to add on to that, and then
Yeah,
I'll get you
I
to
just think-
introduce Buddy, because everybody, Brad,
Buddy.
likes a bit of Buddy Guy, don't they?
Oh yeah.
It's yeah. I mean, I guess I don't have much more to add to this. I mean, I think you're right that I don't really think of it really. You know, don't really think. You know, he's a great singer and he's got songs and he sings them, and it's, you know, and as Brad says, he's a complete package. And you know, like so many other musicians, you know, it's just all there, and he can do it all, and that's, you know, and it's fantastic. I think that probably his singing is overshadowed a bit by his guitar playing, almost inevitably. But you know, no, I think it's fine. You know, he's got his own distinctive style. It's definitely him singing and nobody else, and I think that's, you know, that's a really important thing. You find, as Brad, as you just said, you find your own voice, not somebody else's. You're not imitating somebody else. You know, yeah. As I said, I think it just, there's a bit of you're behind the guitar playing. That's a bit tricky, but no, I think it's absolutely. You know, he's the complete package. Great singing, fantastic guitar player, singer songwriter. You know, it's all there, isn't it, in the package? But I don't necessarily sit down and think to myself, you know, just think, oh yeah, he's a great singer. He can do it all. Bastard.
And before we move on to Buddy, I agree with you guys, and that's why I wanted to ask that question and get your guys' thoughts, and obviously anybody else in the chats, because you know, my default position is, oh, these guys are guitar players, and then you almost take the fact that they're singing songs, Brad, for granted, that they're that they're vocalists, bro, you know, and it's like, oh shit, you know, they're singers too.
100%. 100%.
If that makes any So Brad, thank you for that, bro. I know that you have a soft spot for Stevie Ray Vaughan. You know, we discovered him early in our lives, unlike the rock professor who was, you know, on the
slippery slope,
on some other path to, you know. But luckily he didn't go to the path of damnation, because he's here with us talking about the stuff now. So there is redemption, brother.
Yes.
Kept away from the path of damnation. Just.
Yeah.
I came to the crossroads. One note said path of damnation. The other said, I didn't go down that one. Looked a bit steep.
Too much fun down there.
Yeah. There was too much smoke for me to see what was going on, so I went the other way.
Fantastic. And look, before we move on to Buddy Guy, I know that this will not be the last conversation we ever have on Stevie Ray Vaughan on this channel. Stevie Ray Vaughan is just a big part of who we are. He's up there with Clapton and Jimi Hendrix, as Brad said. You know, you could call this the Stevie Ray Vaughan show, and I wouldn't have a problem with it.
No. 100%. 100%. Look, well, you know, Stevie Ray, we could talk about for hours. There's so many things you can discuss, but, you know, keeping it, you know, a compact little bit about him as a Strat player, I think he was a pioneer of the Stratocaster, 100%. I mean, look at some of the disciples of what he's done, because, you know, like Stevie Ray, we've got Kenny Wayne Shepherd, we've got Philip Sayce, we've got, you know, we've got you guys, we've got me, we've got like everybody, you know what I mean? Like there's an array of players that have
guy Dan Platansky from South Africa.
Everybody. Yes. And there's
Schofield, that guy Schofield,
Matt Schofield,
from the UK.
AC Dunbar.
Yes.
Oh God, yeah.
I mean, there's so many. We could go on for hours and hours about disciples of Stevie Ray. So
Hugh Caldwell.
Yes.
John ZB351.
Yes, we're all, you know, we're all
disciples. A lot more than 12.
Yeah.
Well done, Brad. Well done, bro. So, Rock Professor,
So
Buddy Guy.
yeah, no, I mean,
we haven't done a thing about Buddy Guy on this channel.
Yeah.
no, it did kind of bring up in my mind the fact that we need to do Buddy Guy, Muddy Waters, BB King, Freddie King, Albert King, forget the Kings. Yeah, all these the if you like the main columns that hold up the blue American blues, Chicago blues, and from a black musician perspective, and we need to dig into those in more. I didn't really know a lot about Buddy Guy. Clearly I've seen him on 24 Nights and things, and heard other stuff. He's keeping that Chicago blues thing alive. But I realised because he was born in 1936, so he's old school blues guy in rural Louisiana. So he started off. He built his own guitar to start with. He didn't have any money to do it with. Yeah, the real deal.
Real deal. There's
and
not
then
many left.
No, and then moved to Chicago in '57, and where Muddy Waters gave him a start. And by the '60s, he'd started recording for Chess Records, but also backing people like Howling Wolf, Little Walter, Coco Taylor, all these guys. But he's very much kind of into the '70s before he starts to stop being a sideman and starts going out the front and doing what he does. The '70s and '80s. Playing with Junior Wells and things, and and clearly that that 24 Nights with Eric propelled him as well. But it's interesting that he and then he made his 91 album Damn Right I've Still Got the Blues with Jeff Beck, Clapton, and other people as well on it, which is a fantastic record. Kind of made again that re-emergence, but all built around his signature polka dot Strat that he plays.
Yes.
Kind of thing. But yeah, taking it all the way through from the 50s, rural blues playing, Chicago blues, or the 60s, all the way through to now. I mean, hats off to him. He's mid 80s, isn't he, Buddy Guy? Probably 1936.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Yeah. He's getting
on
a bit.
90, 89. Yeah, he's 90 next year. Bloody hell.
And he's still touring.
Sir. Yeah.
Let me tell you, if there was no Buddy Guy, there wouldn't have been any Jimi Hendrix, because a lot of, what I've got to say about Buddy Guy, his stage antics, a lot of Hendrix's antics came from Buddy Guy, playing behind his head, his teeth, all that stuff. That was stuff that Buddy Guy was doing. I saw Buddy Guy when he was 73, about 15 years ago, at the Art Centre here in Melbourne, and it was like watching a history lesson in front of me. I really walked away from that feeling like he was an entertainer. He walked out, he owned the whole show. He's just the ideal performer. He will come out, he entertains. Not only does he just play and sing, he gets the interaction with the crowd. He'll tell the band, like James Brown, just bring it down. They bring it down, and they're vamping, and he'll start like going, ooh, doing all this stuff, and getting the crowd into it, and that, and the way he did it, I mean, I can't explain it, but if you go and watch, there's plenty of footage of Buddy Guy. You'll watch him, like even at the Stevie Ray Vaughan tribute thing, he owned that. I don't know if you guys have seen that footage of him where he gets up, he goes, My Time After a While. I think it's that song, My Time After a While. Now, what song does he do? Stevie's. I can't remember. It'll come to me in a minute. But he tells everyone to be quiet, and he owns it. You know what I mean? He's a performer. He's a showman, and Hendrix used to have quite an admiration for Buddy Guy. There's footage of there's some footage that's floating around, which I'll tell you guys soon about. But Dan Ryder got the blues really propelled him back into the limelight. That performance he's done there in that blue suit there, Andrew, where he plays with Clapton.
The Super Show. Yeah.
That Super Show footage is phenomenal. That's that's Buddy Guy. His voice is incredible. He was the full package as well, still is. But at the time, back in his day, in his heyday, I believe that, like his lyric, "It'll be my time after a while." It was his time, and I love that. Say Clapton would bring these guys up on stage and reintroduce them to blues fans that probably had forgotten about these guys. But there were that club, Anton's, did the same thing. Andrew and Simon brought a lot of these guys back into the limelight that felt like they deserved a bit of respect and recognition for their efforts in propelling the blues music to where it was. So
it's 100% from me as far as Buddy Guy's concerned. His reputation. I became aware of him through clearly Eric Clapton, and when I was fortunate enough to get hold of this Super Show on a VHS, Simon, and with a couple of friends watching this and being blown away by it, because Jack Bruce is on there, Buddy Guy's performing with Jack Bruce, Miles. Brad. But Miles. And it's and I remember we were just in awe of the power and the improvisation that these guys were doing. And then I became a fan after, and realized, like the rock professor said at the beginning, this guy's the real deal. This guy was picking cotton. This guy was a cotton picker, and went to Chicago, Brad, and, plugged his guitar in. And now you've got guys, these English guys who we venerate, who are saints in our lives, just about, talking about them in that 2016 biography. It's on Netflix, the Keith Richards one. Buddy Guy and Keith Richards are playing pool, and they're sharing moonshine together.
Brilliant, isn't it? Yeah, it's brilliant.
And see, the interaction between them, Brad. That's not bullshit, bro. That's two dudes who love each other.
Yeah. Sure is.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I think that and that thing, and I think it's very opposite as his influence as a Strat player. That when he does the 24 nights thing, and his dynamics are amazing, aren't they? Loud, fierce, aggressive, then drop it down, take it right down. And not afraid to take it right down. Clearly, with as John said, with his 100-foot lead, he'll go out and wander around the audience playing and stuff like that. That's fantastic. An eye for the showman. But the showman backs up the playing, the talent. It's not. And I think that that, as you said, he influenced Clapton, everybody, all those we've played, Stevie Ray Vaughan, all the people we mentioned here, will have been influenced by Buddy Guy, amongst others. But, he'd right up there, and as Nelson, Johnny Heartbreaker said, he used to sit under Buddy Guy Jimi Hendrix used to sit under Buddy Guy with a tape recorder and then went home to mimic his guitar playing. This is a fantastic story. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
And I think that, that through that, and as Johnny says there, he's a link with that rural blues playing, because as Andrew says, being a cotton picker, didn't move to Chicago till the late 50s, and started off in that rural Louisiana. He is a link with the the sort of Robert Johnson era, Mississippi John Hurt era kind of acoustic, country blues playing.
Well, Johnny Heartbreaker says it here in his comments. Buddy Guy is our last link to the Southern blues, Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Texas. And, I have to agree. And I know, guys, you and I and Brad, you know, we had great fun talking about these black guys that were on the Clapton 24 Nights repackaging, remember? And we went to the movie and saw the movie, and you know, these guys, and Albert Collins comes out and, you know, steals the stage. Brad, you're right. You know how these guys just come out in all their power and just own the stage. And I remember we all agreed with that. Clapton was owning it, but in a different way, you know?
100%.
Yeah.
Well,
you know,
I mean,
but, and also I would say never forgot the debt. Clapton never forgot, you know, never forgets the debt he owes to people like Buddy Guy and the Kings.
Buddy Guy. I mean, there's footage of Buddy Guy playing with Stevie Ray Vaughan. There's footage of Buddy Guy playing with Clapton. There's footage of, like, Buddy Guy's played with just about everyone that we've discussed as well. You know what I mean? I mean, I know for a fact that Hendrix used to go watch Buddy Guy and just be in awe.
Yeah.
Of Buddy Guy.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, Buddy was, let's be honest, one of the biggest influences alongside of the Three Kings. You know what I mean? The Three Kings, Buddy Guy. They link back to that old blues. I mean, like I said, when I went and watched Buddy Guy, he was 74, and he was full of life. He played amazingly well on guitar. His band were absolutely phenomenal, just next level, because they were just on the edge of their seats waiting for Buddy to just do what he had to do, whether it be bring the song down, play solo, whatever. They didn't know where he was going to go. I think every show for Buddy Guy is a bit different. He might have structure, but he would go off on a tangent and start soloing wherever he wanted to, and then he'd stop and he'd want to talk to the crowd while the band's playing, and he'd go, shh, bring it down, you know, and the band would have to bring it right down to rim shot on the snare and play real quiet while he's talking to the crowd, and you know.
Do you think that's Brad? Do you think that's part of the thing that that he would have learned being a kind of, you know, when he first started, you know, when you make your own guitar and play, you know, on your own? I mean, you know, it's that old John Lee Hooker thing, is, you know, how many bars is it? Well, it's as many bars as I want it to be, you know, and I think, you know, that it sounds to me like he's got a bit of that. It's like, well, I'm just going to do this here because that's what feels right. You know, I'm not going verse, chorus, solo, verse, chorus, coda. Yeah, that's not how it's working in the world of those early blues guys. You know, it's like I'll have a 13-bar you know, phrase, you know, turn around, and I might have an 11. We'll see how we get on, you know, and that kind of, you know, but that only comes if I think you started on your own kind of thing, you know. If you just played in bands, you learned to standardize stuff, didn't you? Clearly, you never did, which is fantastic.
No,
can I share with you guys a thought that came to my mind, and I don't know whether it was in the biography that came out a few years ago of his or in the film documentary, but I'm glad, Brad, that you mentions Jimi Hendrix, because there's a piece where Buddy Guy talks about his relationship with Jimi Hendrix, and he says that Jimmy liked to talk to him about music, and Jimmy understood, even though Jimmy was black, but Jimmy didn't come from the South like Buddy did. And Jimmy wanted to, he was desperate to understand and feel what that was like, because, you know, being a blues man himself. And where did Jimmy come from? He came from Seattle. Yeah. So a completely different experience, Brad. And one of the reasons why he liked hanging out with Buddy is because Buddy was there to talk to him about music and probably life, Brad.
Yeah, for sure.
100%. I think that they would have. You could only imagine the conversations that they would have had together.
Oh, it's interesting, isn't it? That the distinction between somebody was brought up in the South, like Muddy Waters, Buddy Guy, moved to Chicago. That experience versus the experience of somebody who wasn't born there, but is still a black blues musician, but doesn't have that and feels I missed out on that bit of something. That it's a bit like the English. Then you move it on a stage, and then now we've got English guys playing the blues and playing the so they're not quite the same, But yeah, that's really interesting that he felt that Hendrix felt like he missed out in an odd, with that. That's fascinating.
Yeah,
100%. 100%. Look, I agree with John ZD351. We can talk about Buddy for hours and hours and hours. So I suppose it gets to this stage here where I'm going to kick off. We've started off with Buddy. Well, now we've ended with Buddy, so we'll go backwards. So one of the key things, guys, that I think that you need to check out as far as Buddy goes is this album here. And Eric Clapton told me about this album, not on a phone call, Brad, not on an email, Simon, or a Facebook Messenger.
In a bar in Cairo.
Or in a bar. Yeah. In an article, Brad, about this album here, Buddy Guy, A Man and His Blues, came out in 67, 68. I went and bought the cassette, and it's a phenomenal piece of music. If you want to check out Buddy and what a Stratocaster should be sounding like, that's one album definitely I think you got to check out. Brad, have you got some Buddy recommendations?
Yeah. Look, my first one would be, I guess, the Super Shows footage, Andrew and Simon. I think that's something that people got to go check out for themselves. That's a bluesman, singing the blues and performing and really giving it. You know what I mean? The footage of him doing. When they did the Stevie Ray Vaughan tribute night, there's he does a cover of Long Way From Home, and that's phenomenal because it really goes to show you how much of a showman the Buddy Guy is. And I think if you've seen it, Andrew and Simon, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. He's 100%. Like shh. He tells them to shush and go and watch it after the show. Yeah. It's phenomenal. And the album Heavy Love, it's one of my favorites. Buddy Guy records. There's a lot of funk to it. He's singing on it. It's phenomenal. And I used to put that album on pretty much when it came out every day. And I reckon I did for about 5 years straight, put that on every day for about 5 years straight. It was one of those records that just there's not a bad song on it. There's not a bad thing about that particular album. So do yourselves a favor, check it out. In particular, I mean, the title track obviously is very cool, but there's a really cool version of "I Need You Tonight" on there. This is his top song, and that's worth checking out too. So. Yeah, I could go on for hours, even like John ZD351 said, we could go on. We definitely need to do more shows on Mighty Buddy Guy. We might even try and get him on the show.
Bro, thank you for your recommendations. Rock Professor.
Okay, so again, I didn't know much about it. So I spent a jolly week researching particularly Buddy Guy's catalogue and stuff. So I'd start with Damn Right I've Got the Blues. I think that as an album, that's if you're going to come in, somewhere you want an introduction to Buddy Guy, that's as good a place to start as any. It's got Clapton, Jeff Beck on it. It's got Martin Knopfler on it. But yeah, it's great.
Can't go wrong with that album.
Yeah.
The song "Damn Right I've Got the Blues" is brilliant. He's just fantastic.
Well done, Simon.
Also came an album called thank you. Yes, I went for the obvious. Hey, if you're doing an introduction to somebody, I'm in. But I also came across Sweet Tea, which is a much more kind of a acoustic thing, which is fantastic as well. That's worth a click. And the third one I choose is Live at Legends, which is from 2012, live album capturing Buddy Guy on his in his own Chicago club Legends. So, which is brilliant as well. Fantastic, epic, guitar work, and he's wild, brilliant. In that sweaty club is absolutely. So that's why I discovered that. That's where I went with the three things that stuck out to me. What I listened to this week. So fantastic.
You can't go wrong with those choices, Simon.
Yeah. Might be a bit obvious, but I don't care.
No. There's, I think you chose well. Before we start talking about Stevie Ray Vaughan, I've got to add one other album. And John ZD351 made a comment about his relationship with Junior. And there was an album that came out in the early 90s called Alone and Acoustic. And it's just him and Buddy. And Buddy is playing the 12-string. Just about every song is a 12-string acoustic. It's an incredible. I know that we're supposed to be talking about Strats, but we're going through a bit of a Buddy buzz here. Please go and check out Alone and Acoustic. It's just insane how good it is. And again, these are the real deal dudes. So check it out. Brad, before I get you to kick off with your choices, bro, I'm just going to stick up one thing that I think, and you and I have spoken about this, and in fact, we've done a show about this with a very good friend of ours a few years ago. This video footage on this DVD or VHS, it's the complete package. I'm going to say, if you check this out, our Live at El Macombo, one of my favorite live recordings ever, bro.
Yeah, 100%. That's pretty much, in a nutshell, where you need to be with Stevie Ray Vaughan. You need to check that out. That's Stevie. He's just
steaming.
He's putting it down. It's he's like a steam train on that. It never ends. You think he needs to take a rest. He doesn't. It's got one of the greatest versions of Texas Flood on there that's ever been filmed or recorded or whatever you want to say. I dare say he never played Texas Flood the same way again. I mean, what I'm saying is it was lightning in a bottle. They captured that magic in that venue. That was something that every person needs to go and watch and discover if they have not seen it. That's a mandatory, Andrew. That one, that's a mandatory, 100%.
So, do you want to add your three Stevie things, and then we'll get the Rock Professor to add his?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's very hard with Stevie because there's as we all know, YouTube's opened up a plethora of amazing stuff for us to go and watch on Stevie Ray as well. But I think with Stevie Ray Vaughan, that the album Couldn't Stand the Weather, that was the album that got me into Stevie. He was on that record. Obviously, he'd done Texas Flood. He was in a good place. He was, it was for lack of better ways of putting it, he was in a really good place musically. He was getting recognition for what he loved, the blues, and that he was getting recognition for that now. And I think the other thing that I think that would be mandatory, Andrew, would be Live from Austin, Texas, the DVD.
Oh, yeah.
How it's got the footage of him with the red Strat and all that, and then later where he comes out wearing all the black and he looks like he's fit and he's lost a lot of the let's say the
drinking weight.
indulgence look, and he looks a lot bit puffier and chubbier in the face. He looks a lot healthier, and he's playing some of the most amazing guitar playing that you've ever seen. And both, I mean, like, I'll be honest with you, now that they've released a lot of that on box sets and everything like that of the footage that wasn't played on that as well. So there's like another version of Voodoo Child and all this sort of stuff floating around. Check it out. You've got to check that out. Both, I think it was an 83 performance. I'm trying to remember, Andrew, what's on it. But and then later, once he'd sobered up, there's more footage on there after he sobered up. And my goodness, if that doesn't inspire you, I don't know what will. There's a version of him on there singing "You Better Leave My Little Girl Alone," and I've noted this to a number of people, including my partner. I've noted it to my son. Everything you see him, he's playing. There's more than just him playing. It's his eyes are rolling back in his head. He's in the moment. He's pulling that from somewhere. That's a God-given gift. You know what I mean? What he's doing in that, the solo, the vocal. You mentioned his vocal, Andrew. That vocal in "You Better Leave My Little Girl Alone," just that version alone, it's powerful. You can hear how much timbre he's got in his voice, and like I said, his eyes are rolling back in his head when he comes to another verse. His eyes opens his eyes are white, and then they come, yeah, you know what I mean. You know the bit I'm talking about, guys. Andrew, you know the bit. I think we've discussed it before.
100%, 100%.
Could I say? Could I say, Brad?
Yeah,
Brad. Timbre is a French word. So timber sounds like he swallowed wood.
Well, I say timber because I like to say it's a woody voice. You know what I mean?
Do you? Do you?
Yeah. I say timber like there's timber in his voice. And I say it like that, like because one of my favorite singers, Jeff Martin from the Tea Party, he's got like it sounds like he's got timber resonating in his chest. That's what it sounds like to me. He's got this thing. Jim Morrison had it. That baritone thing and have that timber in there, But yeah, anyway, I could talk for hours about Stingray. So they're the three things I think are mandatory. But if you want to check out also the work you did on Let's Dance.
Oh,
yeah.
Simon,
is it me next? Okay.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to be more traditional. As I'm further back in this journey than so. Texas Flood, absolutely. His debut album, brilliant.
Yeah.
Pride and Joy, Love Struck Baby, and Texas Flood on it. Fantastic record, fantastic opener. I definitely go Couldn't Stand the Weather as well. I agree, Brad. I think it's a fantastic follow up. And my third one would be In Step, the last one, the one that we've ranked.
Yes.
That is, I think, is signpost where he was going to go, what he was going to do next. His expansion out into different things. So I think that that's worth a look as well. So those are my three: Texas Flood, Couldn't Stand the Weather, and In Step. Andrew,
you've picked some great choices there, guys, and Brad, I know exactly what you mean in regards to that piece, because we've discussed it, where he's got his eyes rolling back. It's almost like, something's been channeled through him. So I appreciate that. The last, but not the least, of Stratocaster players that we're going to be talking about, some 3 recommendations. I'm going to give you 2. I already mentioned, guys, earlier, this collection that came out a couple of years ago by Chess Records, Rory Gallagher Blues. It's an incredible collection of Rory playing blues throughout his career. And Simon, we don't like normally talking about collections here, but I think that one there
Worthy.
is worthy. It's worthy. It's been curated quite well, and of course Irish Tour, one of the greatest live recordings. And again, I've had the pleasure of ranking that album. I'm sure we've ranked it. I'm sure we have.
So.
If we haven't, we've spoken about it a lot of times on the channel. You can't go wrong with those. Brad, have you got a couple of got 3 picks? Your favourite Rory picks?
Yeah, Irish Tour 74. That's one of them. I love the rough and gritty studio sort of vibe of the album Juice. I think that's a good album. And this week I was listening to in the car on the way up to Albury. I was listening to Tattoo 73, and that's a good album too. A Million Miles Away. That's a really amazing song that you got to check out, I think.
Well done.
Yeah, they're 4 things. So
Okay.
yeah, there's a few other things too.
We can't count.
Yeah, there's a lot of live footage on YouTube and whatnot, and a lot of live footage floating around that I think is worth watching as well. But I think with live footage that's on YouTube, you've got to discover that yourself. You know what I mean? You got to do your homework.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I agree with you, Brad. I mean, I think I chose the same as you. I mean, I did the Irish Tour 74 because it is clear. I'd also put in a shout for Live in Europe as well, which is also brilliant. Have I ever told this story? My first hearing of Live in Europe was I went with my old friend Tony Bainbridge, who lives in Melbourne now. Give him a wave, Brad, when he passed. We went to a shop called Gap to buy him a sweater, a jumper. Yeah. And Tony was a rower, right? So he tried on jumpers in Gap, and I listened to all 4 sides of Live in Europe, which they had playing in the shop, and he couldn't find a sweater. He couldn't find a sweater that would go over his forearms because he had these rowers. He had rowers' forearms, and they were like huge. And I sat there and listened to 4 sides of Rory Gallagher Live in Europe. So
really,
yeah, fantastic. It's really funny, isn't it?
What a great mate you are. I wouldn't listen to one side for any of my mates.
What, Rory Gallagher Live in Europe? Yes, it's fine.
Well,
you know.
Oh yeah, okay. All right, I get it.
You know,
You're
it's got
patient,
Bullfrog Root on it. Well, did you ever? Worth the price of admission alone. But so I'm putting in a shout for Live in Europe. Tattoo was the first of his albums that I bought in 1973, so I'm definitely putting in a shout for that. As I agree, Brad's a great records, and Deuce as well. I think his second solo album, which is fantastic too. But so that would be my 3 picks for intro to Rory. I don't recommend. I know. Yeah, all 4 sides whilst Tony tried on jumper after jumper.
Wow,
lovely, fantastic.
Well done, guys. Thank you for your recommendations, and we always have a bit of fun with the recommendations. If you're watching on replay, put your recommendations in. Johnny Heartbreakers put down Little Wing by Stevie Ray Vaughan's in his top 3.
Yeah,
I've gone on
absolutely.
record a couple of times saying that I think it's my favourite Stevie Ray Vaughan number, and it's certainly one of my favourite Jimi Hendrix numbers, and I love Eric Clapton's version on Layla. I just think it's
can't go wrong. Great song. Nobody's managed to ruin it yet.
No, it's a great song.
Yeah, brilliant.
Thank you guys for your time, and look, we've had a bit of fun as ever, with these things. Next week we're going to get together and we're going to talk about Telecaster players. Keith Richards, another Roy Buchanan. Roy Buchanan. And
Roy Buchanan.
who was the third one that we were going to pick? Who was the third one? And Simon's. I think Simon said no. He may not be. I mentioned Clarence White, but Simon said maybe not.
Johnny Greenwood.
Well, we might just do 2 Telecaster players, but
we'll think of a third. We'll think of a third. There's plenty. We had lots of back and forth about Telecaster players and stuff, didn't we? But there's Muddy Waters.
Danny Gatton.
Telecaster player. Danny Gatton. Yeah.
So we do Danny Gatton, Roy, and Keith.
Yeah.
Oh right.
Yeah. Keith.
And if the whole show gets taken up about Keith, blame me.
Yeah. Steve Cropper, the Colonel. Yes, John said D3. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, we'll just spend an hour and a half on Keith, 5 minutes on Roy Buchanan and Danny Gatton. Whoever. We'll decide on the third one. I think there's that's fine.
No. So we'll definitely be doing those guys. Danny Gatton, because a legend. Roy Buchanan, another legend. Tragic lives with those guys. And Mr. Richards, who's had a hell of a life, Brad.
No, yeah, hell of a life. Not tragic though.
Yeah. Now looking
bit
forward
of fun.
to it, guys.
James Burton. Yeah.
Bit of fun, guys. Brad, as ever, bro, I appreciate your time. I know that you've had a hard weekend, bro. Touring.
It's all good.
Private jets.
If I have to miss a show, I'll miss it, but I always try and make it, mate. Always try and make it. You know that.
Thank you, brother.
It's very nice of you to sacrifice your band for us. Am I misinterpreting what you just said? I don't know.
No.
And Rock Professor's cheeky as ever. Thank you. Good to see the Rock Professor back. Thank you, Simon.
Getting back.
For get that contraption off. Rock Professor, you want to do a shout out? Oh, it's off.
See, look at that. Without.
Oh,
look at that scar. Ooh, terrible. Yeah, I know. Yeah, see, looks weird now, doesn't it? I don't.
Yeah,
so weird.
Hey, Mission.
Before you met, we definitely have to add Albert Collins in there, guys.
Yes.
Okay, so let's sub Danny Gatton out and go for Roy, Albert Collins, and Keith.
Yeah,
we have to
because they're definitely in our wheelhouse. Those 3.
Yeah, that
has
to happen.
Good call, John. Good call. Very good.
Yeah.
Call. Right. So so we should thank Hugh Caldwell and Johnny Heartbreaker as well. Mission RD, Ellen, Hugh, John. What did we have? Who commented? Thanks all for joining. It's fantastic. There's 13 people watching. I don't think everyone's commented, but Nelson, of course, Nelson Rodriguez. Thanks, Nelson, for must be blooming late where you are. So it's very nice of you to stay up. And Helene O'Hara, I hope you feel better. Helene, get rid of your virus. Nobody wants one of those. John, Hugh, Helen, Johnny. I think that's everybody who we must go back at the top for the for runs for their lives for the very kind super chat. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
So thanks all for joining, and thanks for your kind messages. And we'll see you next week for more shenanigans.
Yeah.
Hugh's right. Danny is definitely worthy, but unfortunately not as well known. Probably not just quite in our wheelhouse. Probably in the same category, maybe as Clarence White. That kind of But we love Clarence and we love Danny.
Oh
yeah, 100%.
Hey,
100%.
We are the rodeo. All of that bird stuff is fantastic. Brilliant, yeah.
It's a masterpiece.
The inventor of the bee bender too.
Oh.
So much to recommend, young Clarence. For sure.
Oh. Are we out of here, boys?
Let's go.
Yeah, take care all. We'll see you next week. Ta-da!
Take care, all. Bye-bye.
Take it away, boss. I'll put it back on now. Good.
How was that, boys?
I thought that was good. Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
still live,
Getting back into the groove. Yeah, we're still live. You see, he hasn't blooming ended it. He's a slippery old eel, isn't he? Gotta watch out. Otherwise, we're getting ourselves into trouble. I'll be telling you on air what I call this. My yeah. It's not happening though. Look, and now the boss man's now. Look, he's left us hanging now.
doesn't want to end the show, Simon.
we can't end it. Can we? Have to stay here until he comes back.
He's really stuffed us up now.
Yes, we can't end the show because we're not in control. We have to stay here. Oh dear.
We can't stop talking about Fender Stratocasters.
Yeah, I've got a food delivery coming at 10 o'clock, so you better hurry up.
I don't know what